Hey guys, this is Trevor Probant. This is the Land Investing Dirt Road to Wealth podcast. Today we have on a big mover and shaker in the land industry that you've probably never even heard of. But before we get to that, I would like to ask you to do two things. I don't ask anybody to really do much on this stuff, but if you could go find my YouTube page, I believe it's just Trevor Probate. I'll do a better job as far as a name for it and everything. But if you can go on there and subscribe, putting a bunch of these on the YouTubes, but also what I'm planning on doing is doing some YouTube live, some free coaching, some free discussion stuff on a weekly basis. So hopefully we can do that. But I need 50 subscribers before I can do any of that stuff. So I'm not very good at self promotion, but we're slowly getting there. So. With that, also, if you could give a rating and review of this wonderful here auditory experience, that would be awesome on whatever it is, Spotify, Apple, whatever you want to do. I would greatly appreciate it. So, without further ado, we have from Azle, Texas, Josh Beesinger. I've known Josh for several years now. We work on a lot of projects. He is a numbers wizard and a guy that kind of keeps us all grounded in a lot of pie in the sky shit. So, anyway, Josh, introduce yourself. Tell people where you're at, where you're from, kind of the whole background.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate you having me on. But okay, so a lot of people may not know, but so Azle is just outside of Fort Worth. But so I used to be a fireman in Fort Worth, and then I started investing. I started investing in real estate in 2010. I was
Josh,
doing houses.
Josh,
Yeah,
where did
yeah.
you actually grow up? Like where's home?
Oh, I grew up in Wichita Falls.
Okay.
So I was in Wichita Falls, and then when I was 20 years old, a buddy of mine we were sitting around and we're like, man, there's really nothing here. It's kind of
Nothing.
like it's a
Nothing.
lot like San Angelo. It's
One
almost the
hundred
exact
percent.
same size, and they both have an Air Force base. They have like a mall, and everybody drives the drag or
Half of it's
bicycle, and
closed.
that's it.
Yeah,
And it's the
exactly.
same size it was 50 years ago, and it's the same size it's going to be in 50 years from now.
One
You know,
hundred percent.
so
There's not an
but
interstate that goes through it. Yep.
I was
Yep.
able to get out. I don't.
I got too much
So,
family, man. That's my own fault. I
yeah.
know. I get it. I get it.
Well,
At
so
least
no.
I don't
So
have
seriously,
traffic. At least I don't
we
have
were just
traffic,
sitting around.
Josh.
Well, we were sitting around one day and we're like, man, let's just move. So then we just moved like the next week. You
That's
know.
awesome.
So that's how we got here. Then I started going to UTA, and that's where I graduated from. Got my undergrad there, and my master's also from there. And
What did you
then
study?
so my undergrad is just business management, and then my master's is actually it's marketing research, which is more statistical modeling than anything else. Even though it sounds like marketing, it's basically just creating different types of linear models and things like that.
Got you.
So
Got you. So you had that background, but then you became a firefighter.
yeah, so I graduated at 27, but I had a daughter at 24. And then what happened was, so my degree, most of the jobs were in LA and Chicago. Well, I couldn't really move anymore because of my daughter, but I didn't want to start all over, changing degree plans and all that. So then I couldn't get a job really. So I was just working out
And
at the
what
gym
year
one
was
day.
this? What year was this?
This was 2007.
Okay.
2007. So I had graduated. I was still bartending at the time, and the problem was, man, even with a master's, I couldn't find a job paying as much as what I was making just bartending 2 to 3 nights a week. So I couldn't. I was kind of stuck. Uh, that's really what happened.
Golden liquor handcuffs.
Yeah. So I was working out one day, and one of my buddies there was on the fire department. He goes, "Hey man, we're about to be hiring. Why don't you go take the test?" So I went and took the test, and then the thing that ended up being really good about it, which I didn't know at the time, was for an entrepreneur, it's a really good thing because we work 24 hours on, then 48 off. So you can run all your businesses on your days off, and even on your day there, you can make some calls and do a few things if you have to, but then that allows you to live off your income and not continually steal that away from your business. And that's how I was able to grow my business. Was I never had to steal from it.
How did you learn about like real estate?
So I was dating a girl who her mom is actually self-made. She came from South America or Central America. She came here, didn't even speak English. And I walked into her office one day and she had a stack of papers. I don't know, it's probably that thick. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm paying my property taxes." Each one of those stacks of paper, each piece of paper was a house she owned free and clear. I don't know how many it was, but it was a lot. It was so I thought I was like, okay, well, so what she was doing this owner finance thing, and I was just going to invest some of her money because I had started just an online retail company and I had sold it, and I was looking for a place to invest the money, and I was gonna buy notes from her, making 15%. And then I thought, well, I could go try to buy some of these houses. So I thought I had someone that would kind of help me out and walk me through these houses, but come to find out she was way too busy. So I went and I bought like three houses all at the same time, and two of them were duds, and then one of them I bought it. I think I paid like this was right after the crash.
Okay.
So all these cheap houses. So I bought it for like $24,000, and I sold it that same week for like 44,000. Just owner finance. I didn't do anything to it. And then, so I started doing that. And then I realized, well, I'm out of money. So then I started selling the notes. And that's, how I got it started in the
So,
note
so you
business.
you started learning. You started learning something that a lot of people never understand is there's two assets anytime you have anything out there, right? Like you have the physical asset and then you have the paper asset, the debt, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, or the physical asset and then the debt side of it, right? In a lot of these properties. And so you from the get go, you saw that where a lot of people don't ever see that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the note side that's what made the whole thing go, because if you have a good asset, it's fine. But back then, nobody could get financing because that was, like I said, right after the crash, and banks just weren't loaning unless you had really good credit. Well, these were in neighborhoods that weren't the greatest, so they definitely weren't going to get a loan. So
Yeah, but that's the cool thing that's we're going to talk about later on, right? Transitioning, talking about the paper, talking about land side, all this other stuff. Again,
yeah,
we're in a completely different market than what we were back in 8, 9, 10. All that stuff. But the ability to get loans due to affordability, not necessarily credit worthiness, is a big deal. But also in this particular land asset class, right? Sub $100,000 properties, a lot of people aren't going to lend on it anyway. And so that's what we can really talk about here in a little bit. So, okay,
yeah.
so you started finding houses, buying them cheap, marketing, bandit signs, letters, all the shit like back in the day.
I would just well, I don't even know if it made sense. I would take a sign and I'd try to write it in Spanish because I was mostly in Hispanic neighborhoods. And, it'd say
Dueño y
three
dueño.
bedrooms, two baths. Yeah, I don't even know if it was right. I think I
Dude,
still got pictures. It was like three Quantos, two something. I don't even know. But it worked. They'd call me, but then the problem would be they couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Spanish. So that was usually it was easy to sell them if I could just talk to them in Spanish. That was
yeah,
the hardest
yeah.
part.
So it's funny because I remember, yeah, it was about 2010, 11. Yeah, 11, I guess. Tate was little when I was building fucking bandit signs, right? And I remember one morning at like 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, right? Going out there, my wife's this little black hatchback car and everything else. And I set this stuff, and all of a sudden, something just like stabs me in the back of the leg. I was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" There's a goddamn rooster over there. That spurred me on the back of the leg. I thought somebody had shot me or something. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Look around, I was like, "Oh my god!" I did that for
Yeah,
a little while, but I realized like the code enforcement guys are assholes here. And then of
hmm
course I screwed up and I put like my own personal cell phone number. The guy called me,
yeah, yeah.
and then
They
I
were
even did a burner phone too. And they were still like, dude, you're the only asshole that's out here doing this. And I was like,
Yeah, you're not hard to track down.
yeah.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny. So you say the rooster story. I have a story that's kind of like that. That was, I started buying later on. I started buying foreclosures at the courthouse steps, and that's how I started rehabbing. But so what happens is when you go and look at those houses, sometimes they're vacant, sometimes they're not. You never know. And a lot of times people get bothered so much they always pull the curtains shut, and so it's pretty nervous. You're up there trying to look through the windows and see what you can any edge you can get.
Yep.
Well, I was pretty nervous, and I walked around to the back of this house. I didn't think anybody was in there, and then the back door was just wide open, and it was pretty hot. I think it was like July or August. So I went ahead and I walked in there,
Oh
and all of a sudden
fuck.
I got to the kitchen, and there was a freaking German Shepherd laying up on top of the countertop, and we looked at each other at the same time. I was like, "Oh shit, here he comes!" And I took off, and he comes after me. Luckily, as soon as I ran through the back door, I slammed it shut, just in time so he couldn't get out. And then I went and I called one of the animal rescue places. I was like, because it's really hot, and I was like, "Hey, there's a dog in this house. You want me to come get him out?" And they're like, they were wanting all this information on me, and I was like, "Oh hell no, I was trespassing." I was like, "Just go get the dog out." I was like, and I left. But yeah, I mean, if he'd had like probably 2 more feet on me, I'd have been toast.
Oh
So
shit. Yeah, a German Shepherd is much different than a freaking rooster.
yeah,
So
he was closing the gap. We can say that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so how many of these did you buy? Did you buy a whole bunch of these and then owner finance them? Like what's the story there?
That's when I really kind of quit doing owner financing, because what happened is when I was owner financing, I was charging 15% interest, which is ridiculously high in the
Yeah.
housing market. And then, of course, all the that was really good for about 2 or 3 years. And then all the fund companies figured it out. And even at the foreclosure, there were some of them. I talked to some people that are like, "Yeah, we're buying 5,000 houses this year, 6,000 houses, several of them." And they had just teams of people. Then you saw your interest rate go down from 15 to 12 to 10 to 8. And I was like, okay, because I had to sell my paper because I didn't have enough capital to just keep doing it. So then I had to change strategies. So what I did is that's when I started buying at the courthouse, but I was doing it to remodel and resell where I
Still
wasn't owner
flips.
financing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And then
I remember in Tyler, Texas, doing that a few times before I went to deal and getting the pre foreclosures and going knocking on doors and being told to go to burn in hell and all kinds of stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah. People yeah, they don't like that. So
No, hey, I hear your property's going to foreclosure. What the fuck are you talking about? Oops.
yeah, yeah, and you're like the fifth person to knock on the door that day.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I remember stopping in one and it just popped up. It was a beautiful house. I was like, I remember driving. Katie was driving with me, and we had the baby in the back, and I was like, man, if I could ever own a place like that, that would be awesome, right? Like, all this stuff. And
hmm
I go up there, and the wife had no idea, right? And I tried to play it off cool and everything else, but I was like, you should probably talk to your husband. I was like, oh, thank God I did not leave a card because that dude come shoot me. I mean, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, it wasn't my fault, but he definitely would have shot the messenger on that deal.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. I'm definitely glad I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So
You get some
yeah,
mad
yeah,
people from your offers
yeah,
on a mailer. That's nothing.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. So how did you get into the land stuff? And I also know that done oil and gas as well, but like how did you get into the land? When was that? How did you get in?
Okay, so I was rehabbing a lot of houses, and then how I got into land was Justin. He told me kind of what he was doing, and I didn't start land at first. What I did was, he was showing me how to do the mailers to get off market. And I was like, man, I want to do this same thing, but I want to do it with houses.
Yep.
And that was before Berkshire or anybody else was doing it. So what I did was I had rehabbed enough where I would go in these areas and that I knew, and I just kind of created a formula that estimated, what it cost to repair the house, and I knew the
Yep.
values. Anyway, so I took it and I was milling to buy houses, but I wasn't doing a range offer either. It was like an exact price. And
Yep.
back then, nobody was doing it, so it was working really well. I think my last year I did like over 50 houses, and
Wow.
with a lot bigger margins than what other people were, just because nobody else was doing it. The people that were mailing at the time were just sending the "Hey, we'll buy your house" and that's it letter. Uh, and then in 2017 is when I started actually sending for land as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
So and were you still a firefighter when you're doing all those flips, or are you done? Had you been done with all
yeah,
that?
so I retired at 2019
Okay.
or quit, whatever you want to call
Whatever
it.
you want to call it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you went for a long time with doing both.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing. I was just building my capital, building my capital, and really what it was. And then a few years ago, I retired from everything, as you know, and it didn't last but about 6 months. But I wasn't. I was doing it more just so I could just be done with everything. That's why I could have quit a lot earlier, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. But you also realize, like, being young and healthy and everything else, like, being retired is not as cool as it sounds.
no, because what you find out is you're retired, but nobody else is,
No,
and
go hang out with a bunch of 70-year-old people. This about.
yeah, you can only go to the gym and walk your dog so many times in a day. That's it. You call your buddy and you call them, they're like, yeah, I'm still at work. And then after that, I got to go home to the wife and kids, and I got soccer and football practice. And they're like, I'll see you next month. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then next month they're like, hey man, I want to go to Mexico. They're like, I'm broke. Okay.
True story.
So,
True story.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the truth. Yeah, most people don't think about it, but it's really not all that great.
No, I mean, again, the flexibility is great, but again, when you talk about like, hey, I'm not going to be sitting on a freaking, you know, island, beach forever, because that's not who you are. Because you're active and you're used to being active, and if you're self-made, you have to have that drive. So it's not like you're going to just sit on your ass. I don't know of anybody that self-made person, right? Maybe someone who's married to them or fell in the money or whatever the hell it is. But
Yeah,
especially being young and healthy and having vitality and all that other stuff, I'm like, that's a death. That's death before anything. You put me on a beach
yeah,
for 6 months, I'd fucking drown myself.
yeah.
I
The,
mean,
the
like,
first couple months are cool, and then after that, I'm like, it's like, but I don't know. I kind of think just working less is actually a good kind of in the middle deal, and kind of picking you don't take a lot of the hard deals or the slimmer deals, I guess. And I
yep,
think that's kind of the place where most entrepreneurs get, where they're still happy doing things, because you're still making deals, which is always, if you're self-made, you always get that little rush when you're
oh,
doing the deal.
100%.
So that never goes away. So you still get to do that. You're just not, working 50, 60, or 80 hours, 100 hours a week, whatever you were doing before. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's like, yeah. Today I had an offer on one that I thought was a done deal, and one of the brothers came back and threw some stuff over, and I was in a great mood all day Saturday and Sunday. And then I was like, of course. But Katie was like,
yeah.
what's the problem with you? I was like, I'm just gonna bitch and moan and complain, and I'll get over it. I'll just give me, an hour or two, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And then they want you to talk about it, and then now you're mad all over again.
No, I just want to throw a fit. Leave me alone.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
No, it's
So,
just a $700,000 deal. It's no big deal.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
nothing. It's
nothing.
great.
Yeah.
Not a problem. So anyway,
So,
okay.
so yeah, I started doing land then, and then I think I started doing my first subdivide. I did. It was either 2018 or 2019 when I started doing that. So
Yep. Yep. And you started doing stuff. You do stuff in Texas and Oklahoma, right?
Mostly, yeah. I do a
As
little bit
far
of
as
stuff
active
outside.
subdivides and active investment stuff, right? Yep.
Yeah, I would say over 90% of what I do is in Texas and Oklahoma. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Where, like, so we came in, I got to know you from the Bond Road Ranches deal that we did
Mhm.
in Sonora, and that was in 2021. So you'd
Mhm.
already done how many beforehand? How many subdivides had you already done?
Man, before that one,
This
man,
has only
I
been a couple
really don't.
years, hadn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I added them up the other day. I'm up to somewhere between 17 and 20 now. I think is
Okay.
some. I don't remember
Counting small
exactly.
ones, big ones, all everything in between, right? So
Yeah,
from
yeah.
2,424 acres all the way down to 40s or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think the smallest one I did a 30 acre one,
Yep.
split into three, but it's actually a really good one. I think it made like 120. It
Yeah.
was, it was super simple one. So,
Yep. Yep. So I understand that completely. So so you've been, are you still doing houses?
no, I've thought about every once in a while sending them out just because it's so easy. But man, I don't know. The stuff's changed with the market, and the here's the difference about houses and land. Houses in all forms and all aspects of the business is more competitive.
100%.
So you've got to work harder to get the deal. Um, capital's harder. Well, not capital's not harder to get, but your margins are a lot less because there's just so many people trying to do it.
And there's capital
Right.
in the marketplace. It trades easier. It's about the easiest thing to fucking trade that there is, right? Like there's the reason.
Yeah,
Yep, hundred
yeah.
percent.
The note business in the houses is much easier if you're trying to sell into it because there's so many funds out there that'll buy it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Have you done any of that, like selling to hedge funds? Were you doing any of that?
No, no, I've never sold. I've never, usually because what happens usually if I get two or three and I'm like, hey, I need some money, I'll just go sell it to some person I know, rather than getting a
Yep.
big pool of them together. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I just, again, obviously they don't do it in my market, but I knew that there was a lot of that New York money out there buying stuff, in
hmm
DFW and Austin and Houston and things like that. So,
yeah, that
so
was good there for a while because you were able to sell to them. Like they were paying so much, you could wholesale them a house where if they were to say rehab it and then they were buying it to rent long term, but the
hmm
numbers worked out where if they were to fix it up and resell it, they would have lost money. That's how crazy they were. I mean, they were just paying insane amounts because everybody was doing it. And that's kind of, since that's gone away, now the margins, you've got just as many wholesalers fighting over a lot less deals now, and the margins have just gone in the shitter.
I think a lot of those people, as you know, are washing out, right? Same thing with realtors,
Mhm.
right? Everybody
Yeah.
made $100,000 selling six houses, right? Just breathing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think that's gonna wash out here pretty quick. It's already started to, right? I mean, that's just
Yeah.
all there is to it. So and I
hmm
don't blame them, right? Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go to somebody that's refied out or got a free and clear house. You're like, oh yeah, you're gonna either have to extremely downgrade your living and how it's gonna be. They better be awful motivated, right? And
Yeah.
they've
That's
got
what
tons of
just,
equity and everything else. But I really think the only way to do this right now is a lot of this going to be a lot of the sub two creative stuff, right? Where people don't have the equity. They're kind of, you know what I mean, that have bought in the past couple of years. I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I don't dick with houses anymore. So
Yeah, I think until rates go down, the people who are doing it are just going to have to live with a lot less margins because what happens is nobody wants to sell because then they got to they're if you're selling a $400,000 house and even if you're buying a $400,000 house, your rate just went from 3 to 7, and nobody wants to do that.
or can do
So
that, right? Like there's a lot of people that can't. Like that's how bad it has to be. Otherwise, you're going to have to actually go rent, right? It's like I saw a deal
yes,
on Bloomberg saying it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy now, right?
yeah. The only people that are selling, are ones that have to, like
Yep.
their job or something like that. They're forced to.
Divorce, job, illness, whatever the hell it is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So Josh, what, Justin has been on here a couple times and everything else. What are, we decided to come together this past year and start the Pasture Holdings, right? On the fund side.
mhm.
So what's kind of your forte? What do you like doing as far as that's concerned, right? A lot of people don't know about you, but you have a giant piece of what we're doing right now. So like, what is kind of your, I don't know, I guess expertise when it comes to and again we all wear
Yeah,
lots of hats, but like what
yeah.
is it that you do with Pasture, you know what I mean, and kind of what your vision is with what we're doing there.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of see my role as actually two roles, really. We've got the note side and then the subdivide side. I would say more on the subdivide side as I think a lot of the ones that that you've seen that I bring up or whatever are deals that they're usually smaller deals, but they're easier deals because that's kind of there at the end. That's what I'd rather do. We were talking about that earlier. I'd rather do easier stuff. Well, you don't make as much money, but you don't have to deal with as many problems.
Yep.
So I,
Yep.
I would
And
say,
you, by easier you mean no, not the capex, right? Not the platting, not the anything else like that, just
yeah,
easier to
mostly
cut.
talking about the plating and just all of that. I don't mind building a road. That's pretty easy and electric. But yeah, I try to get as little government involved as possible.
For good
So,
reason, right?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, really, anything that's not platted, I consider pretty easy. If
That's
because you're
true.
just running. Yeah, you're getting a
Yeah,
survey.
access, water, power, right? Like there you go,
Yeah, yeah.
congratulations.
And a lot of times, the water or power, one of those two is already done. So.
Yep. 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 Yep.
And then
So
on the note side, when people send us notes, then I look them over. I look at the asset. It has to be a good asset. So
walk us through like your kind of what you look at, right? As far as priority, what I mean, like kind of your checklist whenever
yeah.
it comes to, and this
Okay.
is, hold on, Josh. Guys, this is to help you get the best price that we possibly can give you, right? On your notes on good quality assets. So take down some notes whenever Josh gets, as Josh kind of talks to everybody.
Okay. So first, just so everybody knows, what type of property we're looking for is, we're looking for a good quality asset because this is owned by the fund. So what do I mean by that? Generally, what I mean by that is if something, worst case scenario, if something happens and we have to foreclose and get this property back, it's a property that I want to be able to list with the real estate agent and they be able to sell it in 4 to 6 months, something like that. You know, there's a lot of people out there who will buy, like the desert squares and things like that, but then they're selling them on Facebook. Well, that's really not what we're into doing, you know.
Nope.
Um, so basically, something if you're listing it with an agent and it's a typical, you're going through title and things like that, then that's a good place to start with what we're looking for. So when I pull it up at first, I'm looking for the asset. Of course, I'm looking at, hey, is there access and all that? Then is there a lot of floodplain on it? If you're in the mountains, is it so steep where you can't even use it? I would say most people that send me what could be a good property, but I turn them down immediately, it's because it's all in a floodplain, or hey, it's a 5 acre parcel, but there's maybe zero point 0.2 of an acre that's buildable on the whole thing. Just something like that really takes the value out of it. So once I determine that, hey, this is a good quality piece of property, then we move forward with comp it. I comp it probably just like how everybody else does, and I do comp it conservatively. So if you're in an area that's where it's kind of all over the place, well, one, I'm not going to consider that quality of an asset. If you've got 10 people in there buying and selling tracks all on Facebook, and some of them are selling an acre at 20,000 and someone else at 40,000, then you really it's pretty hard to comp stuff like that.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I'll comp it, and then after that, we're buying based off of yield. So then I've got a yield calculator. I just run it, and I'm like, this is where we're at on it.
Yep. So, what are things that change that you can do as a investor selling your properties for, obviously we all want to be able to sell them for cash for 100% of market value yesterday, right? That's
Yeah.
everybody's dream. Whenever you can't do that, what are some of the steps that you can do? Obviously, buy a good asset, right? First place, right? Like we just talked about, great access, usability,
Yeah.
feasibility, with like and kind as far as pricing and everything. What are other steps as far as down payment, as far as interest rates, as far as all that? How else can we help these people send us properties that we can pay them the most that we can?
Okay, so there's a few different things. I'm going to save the best one for last. It might be the thing that most people aren't thinking about.
Yep.
Start off one. I mean, everybody knows interest rates. It's it's not going to help you a ton because you're not going to be able to raise it a whole lot on people. But like right now, most people that are owner financing are somewhere around 10%. So what I do on my own properties and what I suggest other people do is instead of just going with the basic 10, throw out 10.9, 10.5. Half the time you'll get it and they won't even say anything back to you because they're more looking at the payment, 10, 10, 9. They don't, they're like, whatever. But, on a property, let's say a loan is $100,000 loan, just to make the numbers easier.
Yep.
If you go from 10 to 10.9, it's going to pocket you a couple extra $1,000, and it's no different than negotiating the price.
Yep.
So always, I would say, especially people are going 10, try 10 and a half, 10.9. And then second one, of course, is down payment. If someone's selling a property for $100,000, you got 20% down. Well, on that $20,000, you're not having to discount that to us. So, if we're buying a note at say 75% of its value, and you can get 30% down instead of 20, well, now you don't have to discount that extra $10,000. That saved you an extra $2,500.
Yep.
So you can always start by asking for 30% down and let them talk you down. You'll get it sometimes. Um, and then I think
Well,
the
and
biggest
here's
thing,
another key to that too, guys. If you're willing to allow them to buy down their rate, if they go from 10.9 to 9.9 and they're willing to put an extra 10 grand down, right? You're still going to get that yield is still going to be about that same, and you're still going to be able to put more money in your pocket. Plus, us as the buyer of that note, if they've got 30,000 bucks into that some bitch, they're not walking away from it.
yeah. And a lot of people, everybody wants to just negotiate on price. Well, you can let them win on price and they feel like they're winning, but make them give to you on the down payment and the interest rate. And you're still coming out better. They think they won the negotiation. You let them have that last $2,000 that you're fighting over. But guess what? You made more than that by increasing everything else.
Yep.
Um, and then, so the third thing, biggest thing that I don't think many land investors either know about or do is putting a balloon on the note. So, especially if you're selling a piece of property where someone's going to or not buy, but build a house on it, most people are going to build a house within 2 to 3 years of buying that property. So they're going to refinance out of this note anyways. So if you try to get a balloon, what that does is whenever we buy a note, we're buying it discounted. So let's say $100,000 note, and I'm just making up numbers here. If we're buying it and we're paying $75,000 for it, and it's a 15-year note, we're getting that additional $25,000. That's how we're raising our yield, but it's stretched out over 15 years. If you do a balloon and you can shrink that down to 5, it makes the yield shoot way up, so we can pay you a lot more for that note.
What went from
Now,
72% may go to 82% of UPB.
yeah, and where it really makes a difference is if you can get it down to 2 to 3 years. If you do 7 years, it'll make you a couple thousand extra, not a lot. 5 is when it really starts increasing, and if you can get it down to 2 to 3, I did one the other day, and I can't remember the loan amount, but once they put that balloon in there, I was able to pay them an extra $12,000 for the loan because they couldn't do that, and I was like, "We'll go back and renegotiate it." And I said, "Tell them there's a balloon," and the people didn't have a problem with it because that's exactly what they were going to do. They were going to build a house, and they
Yep.
knew that they would. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Well,
people need to be thinking about doing balloons and trying to.
learn to run a financial calculator, right? Like that thing can make you tons and tons of money. And like you said, that 5 year mark, because if you look at a 4 or even a 5 year mark, right? Let's just say $150,000 note. This is just something I was playing with a couple days ago on that deal in Gatesville that we're doing. It makes where all I'm giving up, even to give a nearly a 15% yield, I'm still getting 90% UPB at an 8.5%, 8% interest rate, which is lower than the bank, at a 4 year balloon on a 20 year amortization. I'm hardly giving anything away. I'm netting just
Yeah,
about what I'd be doing there, right? And so that's
yeah,
just the time value of money.
yeah. And what I always do is I always start out my negotiations with that, and then I feel them out because they're never going to want to do it, and their real estate agent that's representing them isn't ever going to want to do it. But if you throw it out there to start with, as this is my starting offer, sometimes you'll get it. And now they may talk to you, hey, no, not 2 years, we want 7, and then you can settle on 5 or whatever. But and it's the same thing too. It can also help you with the price. You're like, at the end of the day, you're like, fine, no balloon, but I'm not coming down in price, or no balloon, but I want 10.9 instead of 10. It just, since you're starting out, they have to talk you down instead of just price. Now they're having to talk you down on balloon, on rate, on down payment, on all of it. So anytime you're negotiating, hey, if I give you this, then you give me this. It gives you a lot more to negotiate with.
Well, especially right now, you're like, hey, you know that interest rates are going to, we all know interest rates are going to come down, right? Whether that's a year, 2 years, whatever that is, interest rates are going to come down. You're going to, especially when you have a residential lot, you know that they're going to build out there, right? Whatever that is eventually. So if you're not going to do it the first 5 years, mister, you probably shouldn't even buy the son of a bitch, to be honest with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
so.
well, that, and not only that, I mean, if someone's stuck at 10.9% interest, a lot of times people are owner financing just because they don't want to go to the bank. A lot of these people actually can, um,
It's a pain
or
in the
they may not
ass.
have
We all know that,
or they
right?
may know that, right? But in 2 or 3 years, if they can go to the bank, because right now, if bank's at 8 and 3/4, but let's say in 2 years it drops down to 6 and 3/4, these people are going to want to refinance anyway. So you tell them, like, look, you're going to want to refinance when rates drop anyway. So what's it matter if you have a 5 year balloon? You're
Yep.
you're
And you can even be like, hey, ask your real estate agent. Ask if the interest rates are gonna be cheaper in 2 years. And they're gonna be like,
yeah,
yeah, no shit. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the biggest one I think that most people might not be doing right now is the balloons.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree with you. And the thing is that doesn't fit for a 5 acre in Castilla County, right? It doesn't, right? Because you're just going to do a 5 year or 6 year term anyway. But whenever you're looking at a, 50, 60, 80, 100, $200,000 property, it makes a big difference. It makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, it
So,
does.
and most banks, to be honest with you, are only going to allow a 5 year term anyway. So you're going to allow them to come in, have a comparable interest rate, give or take, not have to deal with the banks, not have to deal with all the headaches, and still get basically the same term that they were going to get with the bank.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Josh, we're talking about with the fund and everything else like that, but you also have your other business, right? You are doing hard money.
Yeah, so I started doing that not that long ago. So what I'm doing is, there's a lot of people who JV, and of course I'll JV like everybody else. But if you've got a really good deal, and you're basically just tired of giving away 40 or 50% of it, then that's really what I'm targeting. And I am
Yep.
I am kind of I am kind of picky, when I look at it. Like the way I look at it is, I'm not saying there's cheaper out there. I just haven't seen anybody cheaper out there. So if you run the
Hold
numbers,
on, Josh. Josh, explain, like, I've never done a real estate deal. What is a hard money lender? What is it? So explain
okay.
it.
All right. So basically, what it is you just call me or send me your your deal over, and I look at it. So let's say you're buying a property for $100,000 and it's worth 200, just to make numbers easy. Um, if you JV with someone, they're going to put up the 100, and then you split the 50,000. I mean, the 100,000 profit. I know there's closing costs, but I'm just trying to make this easy, where you get 50 and they get 50, and then it's done. The difference here is I give you just $100,000 loan, and it's just like any other loan. You make monthly payments on it, but let's say you take that property and you sell it after 4 months for the 200,000. Well, these loans, there's a point and there's 1.5 points origination, and then it's twenty
What is the
percent
one and a half
interest.
points? Tell everyone what is a point. What does that mean?
All it is, it's just a loan fee. So if you're borrowing $100,000, it's a $1,500, upfront loan
A point
origination.
is 1% of whatever you're
Yeah,
borrowing, right? And a one point
yeah,
five is one or of 1.5, 1.5 points is 1.5% origination fee.
yeah, yeah. So on a $100,000 loan, you'd get charged $1,500 at closing for that fee, and then you have payments based on 20% interest. So that same deal, if you borrowed $100,000 for 4 months, then let's see, you're going to end up paying about $6,700 in interest, roughly. 6,700 interest plus the $1,500 for the point puts you at about $8,200. So now your JV partner kept 50,000. Well, here I'm only keeping 8,200. So, but the deal is when I look at these, it has to be a solid deal. If it's not solid, then that's probably what I'm going to consider more of a JV deal. And
What about a subdivide?
typically,
What about a subdivide?
okay, so subdivide's different, and it's really a case by case. And here's why. And just one more thing is generally I'm loaning the people I'm loaning to now. I'm doing about 50 to 60% LTV in that range. Now, if it's over that, I'm not saying I won't loan money on it, but you're going to have to come out of pocket because I'm willing to loan up to 100%. But like I had one last week that they came in, they were buying it at 85. They thought it was worth 130 to 135. I said, hey, I'll loan 80,000 on it. Well, they had to bring the extra five,
Yeah.
because I thought so. Yeah, no, on a subdivide, if it's a big subdivide, then that's going to have to be something that's going to have to be JV'd on, or I'd say even maybe bring it to the fund. If it's a small thing where you're breaking a tract into just two or three parcels, and it's there's you're not having to plat it, and then when I research it, if there's a lot of demand there and I don't think it's going to be a problem, then I will. It's just a very case by case basis on one.
Okay. Is there any places that you will not lend, or is there any places that you just like, just Texas and Oklahoma? Like where are you been
I'll,
doing stuff?
I'll lend anywhere. I sent a wire this morning for one in South Carolina. So, but it's kind of like the thing on the notes. I'm not going to do desert squares, nothing like that. These have to be quality, really good deals in order to get the hard money.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Where can people find out more about that? Talk to you, send you deals, all that. How can they get a hold of
Okay,
you?
so I've got they can just send them to me. If they want, they can just email me. It's at Josh Beesinger at Gmail, or they can give me a call or a text message. Either way, it's 817-991-4633.
Say that number again, please.
817-991-4633. And probably what I'll do is I'll just tell you, hey, email me the county, the APN number, what you're buying it for, and what you're expecting to sell it for. And if there's anything weird or anything else you think you need to include, do it. But that's pretty much the four things I need.
Okay.
And then I'll underwrite it, and I'll usually get you an answer that day. If not, by the next day for sure. And I can fund immediately. So if you're like, hey man, I got this closing in 3 days, 2 days, that's not a problem.
Okay. Any other things that they can get to you that would help you making that decision, right? Like, you're going to pull all your own comps? Do they need to at least have some comps as well? Anything else like that? Like,
No, I'm gonna pull comps off of lands, and depending on the size, sometimes I use Zillow. If they have any comps that are on their own local MLS, of course I'm not gonna have access to that. I can look at that, but generally just to get started, just send me those four things, and if I need anything more, I'll tell you. But generally, I won't.
Okay. Okay. That's a great opportunity, guys. Like I said, Josh has done a bunch of this stuff. He's also done oil and gas stuff. He's done everything else. Like I said, he could be sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais, roofied up Mai Tais or whatever the hell he wanted to do.
Roofing up my that
Why
does
can't
sound
you
kind of
help
good.
it, Buck? It's weird.
Hey, I might. Nobody else is going to roofie me. I might as well roofie myself.
Shannon's in there, putting it in there just to make you shut up. Just like, here you go.
Yeah, she's doing it. Yeah, she's doing it trying to kill me, not for anything else.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So, okay. Well, Josh, anything else want to talk about or anything else like that? I appreciate you coming on, man.
Man, that's all I can think of. I tried to cover everything on those notes. Like I said, I just stress to people on those. If they're wanting to sell us notes, really try to balloon. You'll make yourself more money.
100%. 100%. So, guys, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, if you get a chance, write a rating or review, and then I'll maybe try to put it in the show notes my YouTube deal. So we're gonna start doing some lives with that, and then maybe we can talk about fund options, talk about all this note stuff, right? And what the differences are as far as a balloon versus non-balloon. These things like this to help you help us get this thing and turn it into a little bit better option for everybody. So anyway, again, appreciate y'all. Talk to you soon.